Hello guys, for today let's talk about biotechnology tools, emerging biotechnology tools in the field of crop improvement. Now, these tools are very important, especially right now that we are addressing global agricultural challenges. For example, yung usapin ng climate change and yung usapin ng sustainable agriculture. These tools help us a lot to be more sustainable in our agricultural practice, more sustainable in our food production, and yun yung mga pag-uusapan natin ngayon. Now, for this specific lecture, I will not be talking or I will not be diving deep on each tools, but rather I would just provide you a quick overview of this biotechnology. Primarily because I am not a biotechnologist, that's number one. And number two, hindi ko pa napag-aralan in-depth yung mga biotechnology tools na to. But I would assure you guys na maglalabas ako ng several videos soon where I will be diving deep on the methods and experiments that are used utilizing these biotechnology tools. So unahin na natin, number one, we have genetic engineering, or we also call it as transgenics. Now, imagine if you could add a particular trait or a DNA into your plant. Yun yung concept ng genetic engineering. So, for example, isa sa mga pinaka pinaka example ng genetic engineering would be your BT plants. Yung BT corn natin, for instance. Yung BT corn natin, naturally, wala yang hindi yan resistant sa mga corn borers. Okay? But what did we do? Scientists discovered na yung Bacillus thuringiensis has a particular DNA, okay, has a particular protein that could actually be harmful to the corn borer. Anong ginawa nila? Kinuha nila yung DNA ng Bacillus thuringiensis, yung gene ng Bacillus thuringiensis, and then nilagay nila yan sa ating corn plant. Therefore, what happened is our corn plant can now produce these proteins that are toxic to your corn borer. So yun yung konsepto ng genetic or genetic engineering. Kukunin mo yung DNA or gene or trait ng one organism, tapos imi-mix up mo yon or ililipat mo doon sa iyong halaman. Now, this can work either by plant to plant, so ibig sabihin, gene of one plant and gene of another plant, or we can also use the gene or the DNA of another organism, such is the case of our BT plants. Kasi yung Bacillus thuringiensis, hindi naman yan halaman. That is a bacteria. Pero nagamit natin yung gene niya and na-introduce natin sa corn and sa eggplant in order for those plants to produce toxin that would be detrimental or deadly sa ating corn o sa ating mga worm pests. Okay, so that's genetic engineering. Now, genetic engineering is all about adding a trait into the plant's DNA. Paano naman, sir? Kung hindi ka mag-a-add ng trait, pero ang gagawin mo is specifically, i-edit mo or ika-cut out mo yung DNA ng halaman mo. So this time around, hindi ka magdadagdag ng trait, but rather, you will edit parts of the plant's DNA. Ang tawag mo naman sa technology na yon ay CRISPR-Cas9, or we also term it as genome editing. Now, for CRISPR-Cas9, imagine your scissor. Okay? Imagine your scissor, ito yung tool na ginagamit natin to precisely cut and edit parts of the DNA. So in here, hindi tayo nag-a-add ng foreign DNA. We are only playing around with what the plants have. So we will use CRISPR-Cas9 for example, and then i-edit natin yung specific sequence of DNA doon sa halaman na yon? Probably to make that plant more drought resistant. Now, for some scientists, globally, ginamit nila ang CRISPR-Cas9 technology to edit specific genes in tomatoes. So ang ginawa nila, napag-alaman nila na may specific gene yung tomato that makes the tomato plant susceptible to a fungi, specifically powdery mildew. So anong ginawa nila? They use CRISPR-Cas9 to make tomatoes more resistant to this fungi. So napag-alaman nila na may DNA sequence pala yung tomato natin na kumbaga yun yung weak spot kaya siya laging dinadapuan ng powdery mildew. So inalis nila yon, kinat nila yung DNA na yon, and ano yung naging result? Nagkaroon ka ng more resistant tomatoes. So that is CRISPR-Cas9 method or genome editing. Another important technology in the field of biotech would be your tissue culture and micropropagation. Well, tissue culture, imagine this as the concept of plant cloning. Okay. So, i-clone mo yung mga plants mo in a controlled environment to make sure that these plants are clean. Okay? When I say clean, ibig sabihin they are disease-free. Okay? Or wala silang mga genetic abnormalities. Now, ang tissue culture and micropropagation is very important sa ating mga farmers, lalo na kapag yung mga tanim nila does not usually comes from seeds. Like for example, bananas, sweet potato, strawberry, yan. So anong gagawin natin on tissue culture? Sa tissue culture, we will be cloning clean, disease-resistant young plants, and then we will propagate it in a controlled environment and make sure that this is actually clean all throughout. So, ibig sabihin yan, makakapag-produce tayo ng mga halaman that are standardized. So, that's one thing to look at it. Standardized. And at the same time, ma-ensure natin na walang sakit itong mga halaman na ito. I remember, with regards to tissue culture, na nung nag-work pa ako sa BSU, isa yan sa mga extension services na provide nila sa isang barangay or munisipyo sa lugar namin. Yung barangay and munisipyo kasi sa lugar namin na yun, natamaan sila ng matinding sakit ng kamote. Right? So almost lahat ng kamote sa kanilang lugar ay na-wipe out. Every time na magtatanim sila ng kamote, laging may sakit yung kamote. Well, unfortunately, dahil nga lumaganap yung sakit na yon, almost lahat ng kamote sa lugar nila ay apektado na ng sakit. So what BSU did for that on those times, they have provided clean planting materials through tissue culture. So now so what they did, kumuha sila ng mga malilinis na sweet potato, and then they propagated it using tissue culture and micropropagation, and yun yung pinamigay nila sa mga farmers. Itong mga sweet potato na to is clean, hindi pa sila nadadapuan ng kahit na anong sakit. So at some point, it helped alleviate the issue or the problem of sweet potato production on that particular place, right? So tissue culture and micropropagation is important. Kumbaga, I would say that this method actually acts as support to the other methods that we have discussed. So for example, if you have discovered or if you have genetically altered a particular crop na maging disease resistant, you can use this in combination with tissue culture and micropropagation para mag-produce ng maraming seedlings na pwedeng ipamigay sa mga farmers. So support siya doon sa ating other biotechnology tools. Kanina nabanggit ko sa inyo na ang CRISPR-9 has something to do with editing precisely the part of the plant's DNA. Meron naman tayong another technology we call as marker-assisted selection, kung saan precisely nakikita natin yung molecular markers sa isang batang halaman pa lamang, which makes selection faster. Ang problem sa selection of crops for crop improvement is this. Una, bago ka makaselect ng crop, kailangan malalaki na sila para makita mo yung result ng yung trait na hinahanap mo. For example, high yielding yung hinahanap mong trait, hindi mo naman malalaman na high yielding yung crop unless magkaroon na siya ng yield or unless lumaki na siya, pwede na siyang ma-harvest, right? Sa marker-assisted selection, ito yung parang method to shortcut that process. So dito, via molecular markers, malalaman mo na doon sa halaman, kahit bata pa lamang siya, kung mayroon na ba siyang tendency to get the trait or to manifest the trait na hinahanap mo sa kanya. For example, high-yielding trait. For example lang, high-yielding trait, hindi mo na kailangang hintayin pa na lumaki yung halaman. Kahit nasa seedling stage pa lamang siya, makikita mo na kung nasa kanya ba yung tendency or propensity na yon to become high-yielding, for example. Although, ang pagiging high yield is medyo complicated. Later on, pag-uusapan natin na for traits such as high yielding, madalas gumagamit tayo ng another method called genomic selection. In anyways, ito yung example ko sa market-assisted selection. For example, meron kang two-parent crops. Yan. Yung two-parent crops mo na yan, mayroon siyang dalawang molecular marker. Yung isang parent mo is susceptible. So, susceptible is indicated by the white line in the middle of the diagram here. Tapos, meron namang another molecular marker na nasa baba which signifies now resistance to a particular disease. Kapag pinag-breed mo yung dalawang yan, tapos magpo-produce ka ng thousands and thousands of offspring, if you use marker-assisted selection, malalaman mo na dito sa mga maliliit na offspring na to kung sino sa kanila ang may resistant na marker at kung sino yung may susceptible na marker. Siyempre, yung mga susceptible na marker, agad-agad hindi na yan tatanggapin. Ang gusto lang natin, ang matitira ay yung mga offspring or yung mga seedlings na may resistant markers. So if you can see here, tinanggal na natin, for example, itong mga to. Yung mga yan. Bakit natin tinanggal? Well, kasi mayroon silang susceptible marker in the first place. Pero itong may arrow na to, tinanggap natin. Why? Kasi siya yung may resistant na gene. So, if you can see, bata pa lang yung halaman, maseselect mo na basically kung ito bang halaman na to, mahuhulaan mo na with accuracy kung ito bang halaman na to will manifest the particular trait that you like. For example, pagiging resistant sa peste. So yan yung marker-assisted selection. But the limitation of marker-assisted selection, by the way, ang limitation yan is only a few markers can give you an idea if whether the plant will manifest that particular trait or not. Paano kung kailangan mo ng napakaraming DNA? Hindi ka nagagamit ngayon ng marker-assisted selection kapag sobrang daming DNA na yung i-analyze mo. Ang gagamitin mo na is what we call as genomic selection. So sa genomic selection, i-combine mo na yung genotype data and then yung mga phenotype data, i-combine mo yung mga yan and gagamit ka ng machine learning so that you can basically predict what type of genome yung magpuproduce ng particular trait na hinahanap natin sa isang halaman. Madalas, ang genomic selection, ginagamit yan in finding crops in finding the best genomes with the highest, that gives the farmer the biggest yield. For example, yung mga wheat, okay? Scientists use genomic selection to find traits that are high yielding in your wheat plants. So, ang ginagawa nila, they will analyze the DNA of various napakaraming wheat plants, and they will also observe yung mga different genetic combinations nila. And based on those genetic combinations, gagamit sila ng machine learning or big data to predict what combination will give us a wheat plant na makakapagbigay ng highest yield. So medyo advanced tech na po itong genomic selection natin. So yun yung pagkakaiba niya sa ating marker-assisted selection. Okay? Ang marker-assisted selection, one to few markers only, which basically predicts if this plant will grow to have that specific trait. Whereas ang genomic selection naman, gumagamit tayo ng many sets of data, DNA combinations to predict yung trait ng isang halaman na gusto nating palaguin sa population. Okay? Another technology that we use has something to do with turning an off switch, kumbaga, on specific traits na ayaw nating makita sa isang halaman. So, isipin nyo na lang na yung halaman nyo, mayroon yang switch. Pwede mong i-on para magpakita yung trait niya, and pwede mong i-off para hindi magpakita yung trait niya. And yung method ng pag-off ng trait ng halaman na yon, we call that as RNA interference or RNAi. So isipin nyo yung halaman nyo, so same analogy, may on and off switch or may mute switch. Kung ayaw mo yung trait na yon, you can do RNAi to mute part of the plant's DNA para hindi mag-manifest. Okay? One classic example of RNA or RNAi is the development of our Arctic apple. Ang apple, ang normal na apple, kapag in-slice mo yan at in-expose mo sa hangin, for a few minutes, mapapansin mo, magba-brown na yung ating apple. Now, bakit siya nagba-brown? This is due to a chemical reaction. This is due to an enzyme that starts a chemical reaction kapag siya ay na-expose sa hangin. Now, itong enzyme na to, this particular protein, is actually produced because there is an mRNA that signals the production of that protein. So, isipin nyo na yung mRNA nyo is something like an instruction to that fruit na, oy, kailangan mo nang mag-produce ng protein, and yung protein na yun yung nagkukos ng browning sa apple. So, how does RNAi works? So, ang RNAi, ang gagawin mo, mag-i-insert ka ng RNAi doon sa mRNA. So, what will happen now is that it will destroy the mRNA. So, it will destroy the message. Kapag na-destroy yung message na yon, hindi na ngayon siya magpuproduce ng protein. So kapag hindi na nag-produce ng protein, mawawala na ngayon yung browning or bruising na effect niya doon sa apple. So it is as if, yun nga, the idea is, it is as if minumute mo yung isang characteristic doon sa plant na hindi mag-manifest. Right? So instead of turning it on, you are turning off something in the plant that you don't want that you don't want to observe. For example, yung ating Arctic apple. Madalas ginagamit rin ang RNAi, by the way, kapag may particular allergen na pinuproduce yung ating mga halaman. For example, nuts, such as peanut, right? Almond nuts. May mga tao that are allergic to those food. Primarily kasi nagre-release itong food na to ng enzyme or protein na negatively reacting to their body. So, ang ginagawa ng RNAi sa field na to, minumute niya yung trait ng halaman na mag-produce ng mga enzymes and proteins na yon para kapag kainin ng tao na may allergy, hindi na siya ma-allergy kasi hindi na siya nagpo-produce ng any particular protein na allergen. Yan. So, bukod sa bukod sa crop production or crop improvement, it can also improve produce for the consumers as well. So, kaya din nating protektahan yung health ng consumer by using these biotechnology tools. And lastly, isa sa mga emerging pinakabagong research or technology in this field is what we call as gene drives. Now, gene drives, they work a little bit differently from other tools, pero ang intention ng gene drives ay para i-spread out rapidly yung trait na gusto nating makita sa isang population. For example, na-discover natin, for example, yung na-discover natin that we can create a disease-resistant cabbage. If we can spread that gene rapidly to the cabbage population, we call that as gene drives. So it can work both ways. Pwedeng kapag may improvement sa crop, ang gusto natin, ma-spread out agad-agad yung improvement doon sa ating mga crops, or we can also use gene drives to manipulate pest and weeds, for example. So for example, na-discover mo na yung specific trait na to agad-agad pinapatay niya yung mga weeds. So papadamihin mo ngayon yun para yung iyong halamanan mawawalan na nung particular weeds na yon. Another one would be insect. Na-discover mo that by manipulating the genes of a particular insect, they can die quickly or they can reproduce slowly, right? Or hindi sila nakikipag-mate because of this specific genes. Whatever that is, na-realize mo na yun yung effect niya sa insect pest. Ang gagawin mo, gagamit ka ng gene drives to spread quickly that gene to the entire pest population. So helping now in pest management. Okay? So yan naman yung role ng ating gene drives. Although this one is still bago pa lamang, madalas ginagamit na siya sa research on weed and pest control. That I know of. Pero in terms of spreading the gene rapidly to improve crops, parang wala pa siya doon sa area na yon. Experimental pa lang siya specifically on managing pests and weeds. Itong biotechnology tools na ito ay very important, okay? Because number one, it can accelerate breeding and reduce costs. Remember the concept of breeding, which is the concept of selection as well. Kapag ikaw ay namimili ng halaman for breeding purposes, kailangan na yung halaman na yan, hihintayin mo pang lumaki para makita kung nandun ba talaga yung trait na hinahanap mo sa kanya. But with the use of biotechnology tools, for example, with the use of genomic selection and yung marker-assisted selection, hindi mo na kailangang hintayin pa na lumaki yung halaman. Maliit pa lamang siya, madedetect mo na, ma-verify and mako-confirm mo na kung nandun pa sa halaman na yun yung trait na yun. Therefore, it accelerates the breeding process, and kapag mas mabilis yung selection and breeding process, it can also reduce the cost for the farmer. Pangalawa would be to enhance disease and pest resistance. Classic example would be our BT agricultural products like BT corn and BT eggplant. Okay, we've used genetic engineering para magkaroon ng built-in resistance yung ating corn at eggplant laban sa mga corn pest. So that is now the use of biotechnology in terms of enhancing disease and pest resistance of your plants. Also, malaking tulong ang biotech sa climate change or allowing our plants to adapt to the environmental climate, to the changing environmental climate that we have right now. Right now, uso ngayon yung sobrang init. Tapos, sobrang daming tubig naman, El Nino and La Nina. Or mga lupa na sobrang dami yung kanyang salt content. So, very saline yung lupa or very acidic. Maybe we can use technologies such as genome editing, yung CRISPR kanina, to develop crops that are more drought resistant, for example. They are more heat resistant, they are more saline resistant. Now, this can now help contribute to food security if we can do this. Another one would be the improvement of nutritional profile. Classic example would be our golden rice. Ang rice, wala naman yung natural na vitamin A, di ba? But through genetic engineering, yung golden rice na bigyan natin ng vitamin A which helps combat deficiencies in areas kung saan ang staple food nila is rice, like the Philippines. So through the golden rice, kapag kumakain ka yon, hindi ka lang kumakain ng carbs, nakakakuha ka pa ng karagdagang vitamin A kung yun ay kulang sa iyong diet. Another one would be to preserve genetic diversity, right? Techniques such as yung gene drives natin, kapag gusto nating may i-preserve sa population na kung may gusto tayong i-preserve na genes on the specific population, we can use gene drives to propagate that rapidly to the entire population, preserving that genes or that DNA sequence to the entire population. Another one would be food safety and quality control, katulad nung RNAi na nabanggit ko kanina. Ang RNAi, due to RNAi, we can now turn off the switch of particular foods na nagpuproduce ng allergen that might be harmful to people all around the globe. So it contributes to food safety, and it contributes to quality control. And lastly, scalability and versatility. Nai-improve nga natin itong mga halaman na to, pero kapag hindi naman natin sila kayang paramihin, wala lang din, tama? But because of technologies like tissue culture, okay, we can now rapidly multiply yung plants na mga to that are genetically modified in order for farmers to reproduce them and for consumers to utilize them for their everyday living. So yan yung importance ng mga biotechnology tools na na-discuss ko sa inyo. So I hope you've learned something new today, especially with regard to biotechnology tools. Nung pinag-aaralan ko to, I am amazed at how developed our agricultural science and technology field right now globally, and we are really trying our best to propagate food that is sustainable to the planet and at the same time safe sa atin as human beings. So as future agriculturists, yun yung challenge sa inyo. Lalo na yung mga nasa field ng hard and technical science like crop protection, crop production, agronomy, etc. How can you use these emerging tools to improve production and at the same time contribute to food security? So before you leave, please do hit subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you will stay updated every time na may pinopost akong bagong mga lectures. Maraming salamat ulit, and don't forget, always learn agri with me. Thank you so much!